Riddle me this. What is the point of a company? The answer that your average person, or perhaps your average bean counter or businessman is going to tell you is the point of a company is to make money. I mean, why wouldn't that be the answer? The fact of the matter is, when you look across the board, successful companies are known for their notoriety. People know their name, and they're known for the fact that they do a thing and they have money, usually. But I would hazard that this is a misnomer. This is a mistake to think like this. And the reason why I asked that question at this point in this juncture on the Vernacular Games channel of all things is because this is a mistake that the larger AAA game industry has made. Specifically, they decided that the point of Activision, the point of Blizzard, the point of Ubisoft, the point of Sony or the PlayStation, the point of Microsoft, the point of Halo, the point of Mario, the point of any particular IP that is created, the point of it is to make money. Now, of course, extrapolating that over to the games is, that's a big step. And I think most people who play games, they understand on some level. It's like, yeah, no, the point of a game on the face of it isn't necessarily to make money. The point of the game is for it to be played. You make a game so that it will be played. And ideally, so that somebody will derive fun from it. Of course, by my definition of play, if you are playing something when you have fun, right? As soon as you stop having fun, you're not playing anymore. You're just doing, acting, perhaps, working, something like that. But I digress. The point of a game is to be played. And if you've got a company that's making games, then, I mean, in my opinion, the point of a game company is to make games. The money comes alongside that, where if you are successfully making good games, people will pay for the value of the play that you're granting them. If you give them good play, they will pay for that. It's the fourth element of things that people will pay for. People will pay for health, relationships, and wealth. Health, relationships, and wealth. I think there's a different one there. But the thing is, the fourth is enrichment. They will pay for things that enrich their lives, give their life breadth, depth, meaning, feeling, things that make the life less boring, more interesting, and thereby make them more interesting, which kind of, goes back into the whole relationship stuff. But I digress. On the whole, when we talk about the very concept of a company, I mean, if the point of every company was just to make money, there is one issue that I have with that. I mean, part of it comes from just the very term company itself, the definition of company, because the term, when used outside of the context of a money-making entity, is just the people you surround yourself with. Company. Good company is good people surrounding you. So you take that if you take that original definition and then you superimpose it onto the money making entity idea, then that would be a money making entity made out of people gathered together. People gathered together to do a thing. That is a company. Now, to be sure, because value exchange is very important to our way of life, because it makes it so that not everyone has to be able to farm or cook or hunt. People can specialize in other things and encapsulate that value into dollars and cents. The way for a company, a group of people gathered together to do a thing, for a company to exist and be able to do all of the various things that it has to do to function, is for it to make money. And so, in my opinion, I feel like some people kind of confuse forest for the trees there, or perhaps they look at what are the byproducts of a successful company. And almost every successful company has the byproduct of making good money. They look at that and they say, well, okay, this is the point. Like every good company makes money. Therefore, any company that exists, their purpose is to make money, and that's a poor corollary. That's a poor corollary. That's like saying that. Let's see. It's like saying on the Serengeti, a bunch of zebras run fast. Well, nah. I can probably come up with a comparison that's better suited to this, but uh, just got back from a long work day, so I'm just kind of like, brain's mush. Anyway, I digress. The point is, that's a poor corollary, saying that because a good version of a company makes money, the point of companies is to make money. Ah, I guess that would be the example then. To say that a good zebra goes fast. Therefore, the point of zebras is that they go fast. It's not the point of zebras. Honestly, zebras don't really have a point. They just are, but they're horses. um, the point of a horse is more than just it going fast, more than just a trait that makes it useful to the rest of humanity. I mean, they're poor as horses, to be honest, because they're hard to train. But the point of a horse is the fact that it is a horse. Everything that makes it what it is, everything that it does, all that it eats, and all that. Point of the horse is that it's a beautiful, wonderful thing that exists in this world that we can look at and be like, wow, look at those stripes. Perhaps. At least if we look at it from a God fearing standpoint, where God made it, he made it for some reason, artistically. He's like, let's make a tiger with hooves. Yes, it's a zebra. And because that would be super dangerous for it to be as fast as a horse and eat things like a tiger, it's going to be an herbivore. Done. Anyway, I digress. So, poor corollary. In my opinion, the point of the point of any company is to do a thing. You gather people together because you gather people together. You make a company to do something that you couldn't do by yourself. So, for instance, an electrician company, for instance, a singular electrician could run his own little base of operations, and he can, do about as much as a singular man can do. Probably do about 5 jobs a day, and he'll probably need to take a break. He'll probably need to take a break, probably like 2 days of the week off, maybe three, to make sure that he's actually uh, able to go into the attics and under the houses and dig all the trenches and lay all the wire and lay out all the plans and da 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 da. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that a electrician would have to do if they were just going to be a one-man show. And ideally, if you're going to be a one-man show electrician, you're probably just going to be specialized. You're just going to be like, I set up fire alarms. That's it. That's all the stuff I have to buy. That's all I have to do. If you have a problem, I'll solve it. If it's a fire alarm, nothing else. By making a company of electricians, bringing a whole bunch of them together, suddenly, not only can you have specialists, like one guy is like, I'm the fire alarm guy, I'm the exit sign guy, I'm the fuse box guy. Uh, Although usually it's more like you've got like a whole host of different things that people can do, and usually when you come in on the job, you're gonna learn how to install something new. Just That's just how it is. um, but I digress. Large company allows you to do a whole bunch of different things all at once. You could bring a team of 7 electricians onto the job site. One of them's doing the trenching. Actually, it's probably closer to 3 of them. 3 of them are doing the trenching. Another set of them are laying down the pipe, bending the pipes. Another set of them are going to be back on site later to put the dirt back into place. And then you've got another set of them that are going to be ripping the walls out, laying out the wire, and then you got that one guy who specifically, guy, it's turn, and he just goes in and rigs up all the fire alarms on their own specific circuit and makes sure that they connect into the transistor box where the master electrician is at, and is scolding his current apprentice, telling him, "Oh, you wired it up badly again. It's going to explode. Do it better." Sorry, I went off on a large tangent there. Anyway, the point is, the point is, a company is a group of people brought together to do a thing that one person couldn't do by themselves. Now, if if that grouping of people turns out to be effective at the thing that they're doing, then the money comes. Then you've produced value. You've produced value that someone will exchange for. So, moving out of a more utilitarian aspect to the fun space, the space of games, the space of movies, and all other forms of entertainment. One of the things that we run into here is that you have to make things of value, but it's not simply in the sense of a useful thing. You can't just repeat it over and over and over again. Like that's the thing. That's the hack, let's say, of being a plumber, being an electrician, being any of those forms of build a house, set up the lights that I'm using right now. You can learn how to do that one thing very well, and you're going to be set for a pretty long time because people will need you to come in and fix it or set up a new one. And you just go in, do it, you're done. I mean, I say that as though it's easy. It's for some, after about 5 years of work, it is that easy. But for others, it's going to take a little bit of time. Anyway, in the game space, you can't just do the same thing over and over again. I mean, kind of, kind of. That's what franchises are for, because you'll have a particular form of play that you know people like, and you're going to present it to them. But one of the things is that with the arts, there's with play in particular, you have the element of uncertainty that is required. Well, maybe not required, but is very useful for making something good. And novelty is one of the easiest ways to create the uncertainty that creates a very healthy sense of play. So you can't just make you can't just make a game. You have to make a good game, and you make a good game, and that good game is worth a value, and people will pay money for that value. Now, the thing is, if you're trying to if you're operating on the definition of a company is the company's there just to make money, then you're not necessarily going to be looking at this from the angle of, I need to make a good game, something that is worthy of the value that they're going to exchange for it. Rather, you're going to look at this as, how can I make something for as little cost as possible and get the largest return? That's why we're in live service land in the gaming space. Because looking at it from the angle of as little effort as possible. Now, obviously, the AAA games have a large amount of teams brought together to do these things. So you're like, what? What do you mean as little effort as possible? Well, what I mean by this is it's not so much that they aren't working hard. They are working hard, but they don't have to finish the game to sell it to you. In fact, they they can release an incomplete product and sell you the pieces and say, well, you need this. Well, oh, you want that. Well, you're going to need this too. And you're going to need that. And you're going to need that. By selling you a broken product and then charging you for the fix, that allows them to make more money for less effort because you can make a thing and have it intentionally be broken or have it intentionally just be bad or intentionally be missing things. And to be sure, there is a charitable way of interpreting this, which is, takes a lot of time to make some of these things. So you you build a core aspect of it and then you let it ride for a while as you develop more and more things. However, and to be sure, this model has existed in the arcades for arcades long before we had the term DLC. Not to mention expansion packs. I mean, I think to WoW and all of that stuff. This concept has existed for a while. There's good and a bad way to do it, but the point is, if you're not focused on making good, valuable content, and you're focused instead on making content that people will pay for, and I there's a difference there. There's a difference between good content and content people will pay for. These aren't necessarily one to one. Now, normally, if you've got good marketing, good content is content people will pay for. However, that's not necessarily always true. And the thing is, people will pay for trash, especially if you put a recognizable brand on top of it. Make a thing and slap Pikachu on it. And there's going to be people who will buy it because Pikachu's cute. Pikachu's a great mascot. But like you put Pikachu on a pen, it's like, oh, that's a Pikachu. I better buy that pen. Now, granted, that pen has its usability in its own right. You just got yourself a character pen, so it's a thing. But I digress. Point of the matter is, making money is a side effect of having a good company. It's not the point of having a company. The point of having a company is to execute on something that you couldn't execute on by yourself. And so, in that regard, the AAAs almost hit that, right? Because you have this large structure and people are drawn to it in part because intuitively they understand this idea that they're going to be a part of something bigger than they could do on their own. They're going to make something amazing. They're theoretically going to make something amazing that will be remembered for years to come, and they will be a part of something great. That's the dream of joining a company. Now, granted, to facilitate that, you usually have to pay them. So part of that dream is, coming in, being paid to do the work, but also being a part of something grand and great. Now, the issue is that you bring those people in with that dream of being a part of a big thing, and so their passion is drawn upon to do some really hardcore and crazy good work, but the product that they're producing is just there to make money, and so may not necessarily possess the depth of character, let's say, to actually be valuable, to not have the theory of play behind it to make it work. Rather, instead of it being something that is played, it is something that is done. It is essentially work. That's a part of that's an aspect, an interesting aspect of the loot box phenomenon, because in that regard, we're actually taking the uncertainty aspect of play, of pay, and ratcheting it up to 11 and using a whole bunch of little techniques to make sure that it always feels like it's all the way up here and we're constantly getting a catharsis of release, uncertainty, and then release. That's a general thing with uncertainty. Is like you build up a tension of I don't know what's going to happen, and then you resolve it by saying this happened, to the positive or the negative, and then and the thing is that they also make it so that the positive or the negative is unpredictable, and set it up so that you never feel like it is predictable. And so that's the ratcheting up of uncertainty up to 11. And they even use elements of recognition there because whatever you pick up, if it's super rare, other people want it, and you're like, oh man, I'm so cool, I got this thing. Um, but the element of experience gets kind of ratcheted down because that's expensive to create. Uh, so when I'm talking about an incomplete game, and when I talk about experience, I'm talking about the actual, play of the game, the narrative, or maybe not even necessarily the narrative, just it feels good to play. You've got levels, you've got all this cool stuff that you're doing in there. Um, it's the act of actually, doing the thing. But with the uncertainty ratcheted up to 11, they're able to kind of skirt by that experiential aspect of it. And that is it's a little bit of an issue. It allows them to actually do the one-armed bandit thing and just constantly get more money coming in, but they're not necessarily making something that's actually good. They're just making something that makes good money. And so that is the folly of the AAAs, and that is why they can't seem to, they couldn't seem to get their heads out of their butts for the last few years. And I think they're getting shown up by a couple of groups that actually have their heads on right, where they're just like, first and foremost, making a good game, a complete game, a fun game. Should the people value it, they will grant us their money, their value, and we will use that to make another good game, or at least something that we think is good. And so I feel like that right now it's more of just we're going to make something that is, by all intents and purposes, by our calculations from our bean counters, should be a guaranteed make the money. We'll have this cultural phenomenon slapped on top of here. We'll have these characters that people love slapped on top of there. And we don't actually have to have the content in there, so we're not going to do that. That costs money. We just have to have the characters on top of it. And we have to be topical, or at least what we think is topical, which is, that whole DEI thing, which I'm not a fan of that either. But again, it's playing into the idea that they're looking at trying to make the veneer of value, and so leaning into what they think are cultural trends. They're really not cultural trends. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You kind of got catfished there. If you're looking at the larger space of humanity as a whole, it's not good. And I think the sales kind of show this, but I digress. Um, that's the thing. They're trying to lean into something that's topical at the moment to make a quick buck off of that cultural relevancy and off of the strength of whatever character they've slapped on top of that topical relevant point, even if the character has nothing to do with it. And this is also what's happened in the comic space as well. Again, comes back to the idea that they're not worried, at least the bean counters aren't worried about actually making good comics or good movies. They're worried about making money and doing it safely and cheaply. Well, cheaply maybe not. They seem to feel that they spend oodles and gobs of money onto these things. But their intention is that their thought is that with their projections, their predictions, they'll make oodles and gobs of money back. And that's just, I mean, they predicted pretty well in the past. And I mean, preying on people's addictions, preying on elements of social acceptance, preying on elements of brand loyalty. Like there's so many different little cultural tricks that they used to create something that had the veneer of being actually valuable to the people that would want to play it. But as soon as they paid the money and got it, they found out it was just an empty box. I'm reminded of, I think it was Joss Whedon. Could be wrong, but it was whoever wrote Lost and their fascination with the idea of the mystery box and writing for the mystery, saying that, you know, you don't have to know what's in the box as the writer. You just have to create a mystery and make it look like you're getting closer to figuring it out. But then you do a hard swerve and suddenly everything's off kilter and the person's like, wow, he's so smart. What is going on? What is it now? Surely the resolution of this is going to be so amazing, so crazy, and it's going to make everything make sense. And the fact of the matter is, there was never anything in the box. The resolution is nothing. It's when you get to the resolution, you're just like, well, what were we even doing? But by golly, that run up to that resolution, holy hell, that's a ride, huh? But people who are somewhat savvy with their stuff start to recognize that mystery box stuff. I mean, that's not your average consumer, so of course they'll get roped into it. But I digress. It's something where you're producing the veneer of value and not the actual value that a person would actually exchange value for. So anyway, I'm going off on a lot of different tangents here. The point is to bring it back to that core idea. The point of a company is to do something that you couldn't do on your own. It's to do something with a cadre of people, a cadre of skills that make it possible for you to do something greater than what you yourself could do. That's the reason you make a company. And the reason why a company makes money is because the thing that they're trying to do is valuable to people, and people are willing to pay for either the service, the item, or simply the continued life of the company because they like what they do. And so that is a side effect of being good at doing a thing. The money, in a sense, and now let's step back a little bit from that because let's be real. We all live in this world. People need money. And so oftentimes when you want to do something, you kind of have to be like, well, I'm going to make this company, and a part of the point of this is because I want to make money. However, however, if you go in with that mindset per se, without actually thinking about what it is you're trying to do and what actually makes it valuable, you're going to fall short. By that, I mean, if you're just focused on the money and not focused on the actual value that you're providing, you're not going to actually do something that is valuable. You're just going to do the minimum amount required to get a return. Mhm. And maybe that's what you need. Maybe that's what you want. In which case, the point of your company was to make money. But the companies that people actually put their minds, put their hearts and souls behind, the companies that people actually really believe in, the point of them is to do a thing and they make money as a side effect of doing that thing well. And because of that money being made, they are able to keep the company running. And so it is still true that a company that is healthy is making money. Unfortunately, you can't get around that. A healthy company does make money. If it's not making money, well, yeah, you kind of out of luck. So that's one of the things. Just don't mistake that for the point of the company per se. I mean, to be sure, don't mistake that for the point of the company if that's not your reason for making it. If your whole point of making a company is to make money off of it, then you form it, you build it up until it's worth a whole bunch of money. You sell it off to some other group and watch as they drive it into the ground. I've seen that happen so many times. But I digress. That's my take on it. And this is my opinion. So I'm certain a lot of other people will have a different thinking on this. Um, and more power to you. You can think the way that you do, and I'll think the way that I do. I will say, you take my thinking with a grain of salt, because while I have formed my own game company and all of that, and we have successfully made games, I cannot say with 100. I cannot say with 100%. You know, what's the word? With 100% virtue that we've been exceptionally good at it. So, with that in mind, take my thoughts with a grain of salt, and mull over them. Think about it for a moment. Superimpose it onto those larger companies and ask yourself, does this make sense? Use your discerning minds, boyos. At any rate, this is Redcoat signing off. Play the games you want to play, boyos.